Look, I had to put this wig on because if you see my hair under here, I look like that rapper, that Little Yachi or Little Yachi or whatever. So I had to put a wig on because there was no way I was coming on camera with these doo-doo plaits. So yeah, I have a wig today. But I don't know how to lay wigs, so you know, just you're gonna have to deal with it looking like some high top. But yeah, hi guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Kiki Williams and I feel like it's been so long since I've filmed something. I know it's probably been like, it will be like 2 weeks since I've uploaded, but it's been so long since I've actually filmed anything. Now in today's video, it's all about kind of famous people who have gone through struggles and kind of got through them. And I've always found when I've read any sort of like self-help books or anything like that, I always find that they give examples of people who are well known, and then when you read through their stories and then you realize who it is at the end, because usually they just say, they start off, oh, this person was born in such and such time and this happened to them, this struggle, they failed at this, they failed at that, and then when they actually said the name, I'm like, what? That person, the one that's like got about trillion millions of money in their bank account, was like that. I picked 3 famous people who have kind of struggled and had failures in their life, and who've actually succeeded in the end. I just thought it'd be a little bit of motivation. It definitely gave me motivation. So I'm like, I'm gonna pass my knowledge on to you people, and I hope that you get some value from this. Like, whatever life throws at you, you can always succeed. Your dreams can turn into reality, and just keep on going. Like, it will get there, you will get there in the end. So let's get into the video. I need to stop doing that anyway. And also guys, I always forget, please subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Like, I see you people that just watch it but you don't like it and subscribe. Obviously it's on your own will, but please, you know, you'd be supporting me by subscribing to my channel. Yeah, subscribe, like if you can, even just a simple like. All the info is down the bottom for like my socials and stuff. Just in my Instagram. So yeah, finally, let's get into the video. So number 1, I feel like a lot of people can relate to it, so that's why I chose her, and it was really impactful as well. So she was born in 1965 and she had quite a difficult childhood. She had quite a difficult relationship with her father, and her mother also had MS. So it's it's quite a difficult illness, especially as a child, to like deal with. At 17 years old, she failed to get into Oxford University. She was rejected. She actually passed the examining test required to get there, but she just didn't get in. So she ended up going to the University of Exeter. When she got there, she got her bachelor degree. So at this point, she was around, say, 21. So you can imagine her having quite a difficult childhood, her mum being very ill, a strained relationship with her father, and she moved to London and started to work with a charity called Amnesty International. So it was at the point of when she got to 25 years old that she was on a delayed train and she thought up this idea of a young wizard. So she was 25 when she thought of this idea. After she came up with that, she didn't do much with it. She started writing, but then a few months later her mum actually died from MS, and her mum's death was like, really hit her hard, to the point that she actually ended up moving to Portugal to kind of start a new life. She became a teacher there. So within a year of living in Portugal, she met her soon-to-be husband. They eventually got married, and she had a child in 1993, which made her 28 by that age. And at this point, she had written 3 chapters of this book, of the idea that she came about. I'm sure you guys can guess who it is now, but I don't know. So the relationship with her husband was really difficult. They really struggled. There was like even reports of domestic violence. He actually ended up kicking her out of the place that they stayed, and she actually fled to Scotland with her daughter. I think her daughter was still a baby at the time, and yeah, she just left, but the relationship wasn't a good one. So at this point, she obviously had gone back to Scotland with her sister, and she just felt like a failure, that, you know, she hadn't achieved much in life. At that point, she just felt, you know, depressed and low. She was a single mum now, living with her sister, and I think she eventually got her own place, but nothing, you know, major at all. And within those 2 years of moving to Scotland, she was diagnosed with clinical depression. She contemplated suicide. So yeah, she was going through it, as you can imagine, and she had a child with her as well. After doing some research about her, looking back at that time, she says that was one of the most liberating times for her. I think some people, when you are going through depression, and anxiety or whatever, at the time it feels like the worst thing ever, but those times where you're the most broken is the times that you must learn to heal yourself completely. So she was also signed onto benefits, so the government was helping out with benefits, so state benefits. So at this point she was 30 years old, so 5 years after she came up with the idea of the Young Wizard, she ended up completing the first novel. She found an agent and they submitted the book to 12 different publishing houses, and which they all rejected the book. And it wasn't until a London publishing house called Bloomsbury gave the green light, and it was actually, I think, the manager or the editor's daughter who kind of persuaded them, because I don't think they were going to do it either. It was actually the daughter who persuaded them to give the green light. They gave her an advance of £1,500. The editor or the manager, whoever it was, kind of said to her, you're not going to make a career in children's books, like, you're just not going to, so you need to get a daytime job. So when she was 32, the book was published, and if you haven't figured it out by now, the book was Harry Potter. And yeah, the rest is history. Like, she's the first billionaire author. Her books obviously sold out worldwide, millions. I believe the third book, which was Goblet of Fire, sold, when it was sold in the US, it sold 3 million copies in 48 hours. Like, what? So you can imagine she's been through it, but she had a dream, she kept pushing through it, even though life got in the way, and she made this banging book that every child my age or from my generation absolutely loves. So yeah, that's the story of J.K. Rowling. And to think she was on benefits before, you know, she was a single mom, she made her way somehow and became a billionaire from those books. So it can work. You can be in a rubbish relationship, you know, you can have a difficult childhood, you can have parents that you have parents that are passed away, but you can still make it. So number 2, you probably wouldn't have heard of her, but she was born in either 1990 or 1989, I'm not sure. When she was 6 years old, she lost her mother to her father due to domestic violence, and she entered the foster care system. She found it very difficult growing up, especially in school. She would always get into fights. You know, she had this real anger, which obviously is understandable from what's happened to her. At 12 years old, she met a mentor who helped foster kids get into, you know, that kind of live out their dreams. So she discovered writing and she loved it. She then went to college to study in accounting. She graduated in 2012 and found a job working with a senior accountant in a bicycle shop, I believe, or motorcycle shop. which obviously you can imagine was boring for her. And she ended up getting into script writing. And on one of her first early scripts, she was submitted to the Sundance Lab Institute. It was like a 2 weeks boot camp kind of course for script writers. And there's been people that, you know, was at this boot camp that have been waiting years to get in, and she got in. So you can tell that she had a talent, but you know, she's had it kind of quite tough, obviously being in the foster care system, which I have no idea what that's like. So nearing the end of this 2 week boot camp thing, her boss, because I think the boot camp was maybe in New York, the boot camp was in a different state. She's from America, and her manager called her really angrily saying, you know, it's either you come back to your job, or, you know, you're fired because we're busy, basically. And she quit her job because I think she was just about to go onto the stage to read her poem or something like that, and that's when he called, and she quit her job. And obviously she wanted to chase after her dreams, but she felt kind of like, oh shit, like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna pay my rent? So after she'd have done that, there was 2 people who was at the boot camp who believed in her and gave her some money to kind of support her, which obviously kind of saves her for a while in terms of like her rent and stuff. She was not employed, she didn't have that much money, but that money that she had that was given to her kind of helped her with her rent. But obviously that money was going down and down and down. During this time, she didn't obviously have much to do because she wasn't working. So even though she was carrying on with her script writing, she kind of developed a passion. She kind of developed a love for celebrity blogs. She was always on them. She kind of became obsessed with it. And then she kind of came up with the idea to make her own one. And within the space of a week, she had 10,000 followers on her Instagram page. And I think her goal was, I think by the end of the year, or after a year of setting up the blog, to have 10,000, but she got that in a week. So she knew there was potential in this. She started the blog in 2014, and it just kept going up and up. Like, she was really dedicated to it, like posting like really intricate details about celebrities, and it just got bigger and bigger. But at this point, her money was running low. She didn't have any money left. She still wasn't working. She was at -400 in her account, in her bank account, and she had written her check for the next month's rent, which she knew was going to bounce, but she didn't know what to do. Her friends around her was like, you know, why are you doing this blog? It's pointless, you know, you're not going to get anything from it. Like, you need to get a job, you can't make money from this. And, you know, obviously she's panicking. She's written a check for her rent and she knows it's going to bounce. What can she do to save herself, really? And she decided to create ad packages for the Instagram page for small businesses. And from then, the money just flew in. Like, that check didn't bounce. And the rest is history. I don't know if you haven't figured it out who I'm talking about, but it is the owner of Shade Room. And they've got maybe like, I don't even know how many followers they've got. They've got loads. I'm about to say 5 million. I don't think it's even that. Actually, let me check. I said 5 million. She has 14.4 million followers on Shade Room. Like, that's crazy. And to think she only started it in 2014, which is only 4 years ago. And she's now 29, I believe. Yeah. The owner of Shade Room is Angelica Nwandu. I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah, so not being broke, having no money, having this idea, running with it, keep going at it. You know, she's still kind of has to deal with the trauma from her childhood, which takes a long while. I don't think trauma from her childhood, you know, happens overnight. It really does take dedication. So yeah, that's another person who I was like, wow, I never knew her story, and how amazing was that? How amazing, like for her to come up with this idea of just posting celebrities' business and it booming like that for as a business for her. Number 3, the last one, he was born in 1948, the American. His father died from alcoholism. He had only met his father twice. So he was raised by his mom and his grandparents. I believe that he was raised by his grandparents at first, and then his mother kind of took over when he was around 10 or 11. During childhood, he had a stuttering problem, which he eventually grew out of, but he did have that issue growing up as a child. And then he got quite involved in the civil rights movement, especially after Martin Luther King's assassination happened. He actually held some members of a college hostage, and he was charged and convicted with unlawful confinement. And I'm not sure if he was charged or convicted, or he was just kicked out and expelled of the college, so it's not really sure in terms of like what I've looked at, but he was definitely expelled from the college for 2 years. He pretty much got very radicalized, and because of this, one day his mum just put him on a plane to LA and said, the FBI has come to my house and said, if you don't stop what you're doing, you're gonna be dead within the year. So obviously that freaked his mum out, and she sent him back into LA. While in LA, he was a social worker, and then he decided to come back to, I believe, Atlanta and study and get his degree at the same college that, you know, he got expelled from. So he went back there and got his degree, I believe, in drama. So at this point he was around 24. He started appearing in small films and stage plays, but early in his career he developed an addiction to alcohol and to heroin and cocaine. He was still like filming and acting and stuff like that, but he was, you know, had an addiction at the time. He overdosed several times on heroin. He was still getting roles, just not major ones at all, small parts. He had parts in The Cosby Show, which to us obviously is major, but it was still minor roles. But he was on drugs. He was on drugs for at least, I believe, 10 years or less than that. But finally he checked himself into rehab because he could see the way that it was affecting his family, and he was successful in rehab. He was still getting small roles. He actually ended up playing a drug addict after he came out of that. I can't remember what the movie's called, but you know, it was still quite small roles until he was at the age of 43. So you can imagine, he hasn't really had a break until he was in his 40s. Let's remember that, people. You know, your 20s, 30s, you're still young, you still got time to make it. He didn't make it really until he was 43. And that major film that he was in was called Pulp Fiction. I haven't watched it myself. I know I've heard a lot about it, but if you don't know who I'm talking about by now, it is Samuel L. Jackson. And yeah, and since then he's had major movies. He's still working today. He's 69 years old. So, you know, let's get that kind of a misconception out of the way, that, you know, you have to figure it out all in your 20s, because it just doesn't work like that. Life does not work like that. He didn't make it big until he was 43. So if you feel like you're in your 30s or you're in your 20s and you're in a rubbish place, you're in a rubbish relationship, you're in a rubbish job, don't feel like you have to stay at it, and don't feel like your life is over. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. 3 people who I found their stories to be really inspiring, but they've made it, they're successful. So don't feel that your struggles are just your own. So I just wanted to give you a bit of motivation. I hope it helped. You know, leave some comments down below. I'd love to hear what you thought of these 3 people, if you knew anything about them. But yeah, guys, please, I would love it if you guys could subscribe, because it really helps me. And yeah, I will see you soon for another video. Until then, see you later, guys.